Today's topic is how we put each other first. I know that you probably struggle with this. A lot of couples do. If you think it's rough when it's just the two of you,
wait till you have kids.
So much more.
So many demands for your time. And so it's important that we put each other first, though, so our relationship stays strong for our kids. It's so easy to let your kids take all your time away from each other. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, you're disjointed or separated and don't have the relationship you once had. So
so do you think that it's easy personally for you to put me first?
I mean, it's definitely easy in terms of my desire to put you first, but it is hard at times because there's so much that's pulling for your attention, whether it's planning for the next trip or work or stuff that needs to be done around the house, fixing stuff, mowing the lawn, or girls, whatever it is. It all is kind of fighting for my attention. So it's easy to let things take my attention away from you. But it's easy also to give you attention because obviously I love spending time with you and I love being with you and giving you all my time. And so it's really, the trouble is finding that balancing act, especially now that we have kids. You have to cook for them, and then you have to clean up after them, and then you have to feed them, and then you have to bathe them, and you have to change their diapers or change their clothes, and then put them to sleep, and all these things. Not to make it sound like it's a big
burden.
Chore or burden. It's not. It's beautiful and it's awesome, but it is.
It takes up your whole day. Just do it.
So, one of the ways I do it, I think it's important that all men keep the eyes just for your spouse, right? Don't let your eyes wander to other women.
I've really always appreciated that about him.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it can be tough because obviously men have natural desires and are attracted to women. But it's important to make sure that you keep your eyes just for your spouse. And whether it's you have to mentally think about that or it eventually becomes just a habit or natural, it is very important. So I think in terms of putting your spouse first, that's first and foremost, is making sure that you're just focusing on them and then praying for your spouse. That really has, I think, helped us. We built our relationship on the foundation of Christ and praying for each other and standing in faith for each other. And so I think doing that just connects you in a way that, you can't help but to pursue that person even harder.
Right, and for someone who doesn't understand that quite as much because maybe you don't pray a lot, or maybe you're not Christian. So the thing is that I've realized for praying for him, like putting time aside to pray for him actually allows me to think about him more and to want to do things for him more throughout the day. So when I notice that I'm not spending my time in devotions or praying or just reading my Bible or doing something where I'm spending time with God, I realize that my time gets taken away from everything. I don't know how that works out, but somehow I am given a surplus of love, of time, of energy when I am spending time with the Lord. So then that makes me want to see what he's doing throughout his day, give him a call, shoot him a text, ask him how his day is. Now he's super busy, so that normally it might not happen that I get a hold of him, but still I like him to know that I'm thinking about him, that I love him. I'll send him pictures of the girls so that he feels connected.
Or a nice little picture of yourself sometimes is nice.
Of myself.
But I think having that softens your heart towards the other person. There's always going to be things that may irritate you about me or vice versa, whatever it is. But I think when you're pursuing that person in prayer, God in prayer for that person, it softens your heart for them and allows you to overlook some of those things. I know it definitely does for us.
Another thing that I was going to say was I think routines are important. Zach has never really liked routines as much, but he realizes that having routines for the girls makes a lot of sense because then that allows us to have a lot more time together. So bedtimes are really important. That wasn't always in our language, but bedtimes are really important for us. And whatever the night routine is, when he gets home, he wants to be able to spend time with the girls, but then they have their time. We have our time alone. So they're tucked away in bed. So that's also really important. So
I mean, you can still be flexible, but
yeah, you can.
there's specific things that help to ensure you get your quality time together.
Right. Well, and let me just say this, I used to want to be the type of mom where my kids slept in my bed and I wanted them to be close with me all the time. And that could be another thing that you want to think about if you're wanting to put each other first, that having that time alone. I cried. Again, I've said that before in another video, but I would cry and be really sad over the fact that they couldn't join us in bed and I just wanted to cuddle them. But, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we don't do that. And for parents who do that and it works out for them, that you're still a really close couple, then please share your tips with us in the comments below so that we can share that with our viewers. But for us, it was very important that we actually kept the kids in their own rooms.
Yeah. And with kids, speaking of, and me coming home and want to spend time with them, it's important that each one of our girls feels, my love as well. But my wife comes first. And so that's one thing that I think is very important, and a lot of couples miss that, is they put their kids before each other. And so we make it a point. It is, because they just want your love. They don't get annoyed with you. May get annoyed with them, but they don't typically get annoyed with you.
And they want to be with you all
And they want to be with you all day, no matter what. And so one of the ways that I make it a point to show that to my girls, that mommy comes first, is when I walk in the door, they all can run over to me, and both Tegan and Ryan can run to me and want my love. And of course I'm saying hi and, throw my arms on them, loving them. But mommy, you go straight to mommy. I go straight to mommy first, and mommy gets the first kiss. And then the girls get all the love, not all the love, but get all the love they want after that, And so making sure that mommy comes first and that the girls see that, so that way, even at 1 year old, Tegan knows that she's going to hang on my leg maybe as I walk to mommy first, but mommy's going to get the first kiss, and mommy's going to be loved first and foremost, and they're going to get everything they need, but we're going to work and develop our relationship first. And this is one of the things that my dad always used to say is, this is my wife. Instead of saying your mom, go tell my wife this. And so I don't do that quite as much, but I do find myself sometimes
because
just
they're
saying,
still little.
Exactly, but this is my wife.
Well, today, Zach said that to Ryan. He doesn't say this very often. She goes, no, that's my wife, because she doesn't understand that quite yet. But she just feels like, oh, that must be a close thing. I want that title for my mommy and me. She's my wife. And
it was cute.
It was really, really cute. But as they get older and you have older kids, then I think they have a respect of the fact that the husband is saying, this is my ownership. Like, this is mine before it was yours.
And then going back to couples that don't have kids, I think, is there any tips that you have how to put each other first prior to us having kids?
So I think that a big thing can be parents that come in the way of relationships, and a lot of times maybe sons might have really close relationships with their moms, and daughters can have really close relationships with their dads, and those are all very important relationships. But I think sometimes people can put negative things in our head, and maybe if our parents are trying to protect us, or they feel like maybe not everything is perfect about the other person, then they might say some things and you might believe them, and then you start to treat your other person that way. So you have to remember to put the other person first before even your parents.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a hard, the Bible talks about leave and cleave, and it's a hard concept. You've spent your whole life with your parents, but now obviously parents' relationship with their child is always, very important. But
and we're not talking about like the 14-year-old, 15,
yeah,
16.
We're talking about married.
Yeah.
If you're married, it's important that a wife puts her husband first, and a husband puts his wife first, and so you make that separation with the parents and with the rest of the family, or maybe even other friends if they're like your family, where now that spouse has to be your number one. You can't put someone else's thoughts, opinions, whatever above that of your spouse. And so you can, obviously you take everything in the advice, not saying that your spouse is always correct, because sometimes there are great advice and you can learn wisdom from other people, which is I think what we always try to do, but it has to be something where it's not a competition of, my voice versus your parents' voice or any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Or even like best friends, maybe sometimes have a little bit too much say in a relationship. It doesn't mean that you should hate your spouse's best friend by any means, but I think that there has to be a discussion that said what our relationship is should stay here, especially when it's negative things. It's really easy for us to call our best friend or to call whoever's we're closest to and tell them about what's wrong.
All the negative.
But by keeping each other first, that means that we are going to deal with this here. And we're not going to tell everybody our dirty laundry or even our best friends every single thing, because then our best friends or whoever we're talking to is going to get a negative connotation about, or negative feelings, thoughts, or whatever about that person, your spouse. So we don't want to give it all.
Important to have a united front, when you're out in front of other people.
And that's not fake.
It's not. And so, it's not being fake. It's being on the same page, because one thing, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And number one, I think, is your relationship. Because if you can break your relationship, you can break your family, you can break your home, you can break all of that. So whether that's through finances, through other people trying to come in and give you bad advice or bad input, or just steal you away, your attention, your affection, whatever it is. And we need to guard our hearts and guard our minds against that. And so in doing so, we are able to put our spouse first. And so it all is very interrelated.
Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be more excited about your girls' night than your date night, right? Like, it's so much fun to have your girls' night, but you have to be making sure that your spouse feels really loved too.
And make sure you're having date nights.
Yeah, that is really important. We went for a really long time without date nights, and I stressed for them the most. And are you glad that I stressed about them?
No, I'm not glad you stressed about them at all.
Okay, not stressed. I wanted to have them so much, and I kept pushing for them.
Yes, and I wanted to have them too, and I did. And I'm glad that, I'm very glad that we're back doing our pretty much almost weekly date night. It is very nice.
Right. And the other thing is, he was like, oh yeah, just plan something and we'll do it. It might be the man who's not that good at like planning the date nights, and I would get annoyed, to be quite honest, because I would say, you're the man, you're supposed to be planning these date nights, you're supposed to want to be spending this time with me, like, figure it out. But that's not fair either. And if us women are better at planning, maybe it might take a little bit of extra time. It doesn't mean that they don't love us. It just means they might not have that strength of being able to organize something and put it together. So how about you start and think of a few ideas and just plan it ahead of time. What I'll tell him most times is I'll plan the dates and you plan the childcare. And normally that works out pretty well.
She gets the easy part.
You can plan a date night. You have busy schedules, maybe you don't have kids, but you still can be very busy. So even if that means you guys go for lunch, and that was one thing I used to do a lot even before we had kids, was if I really missed him, I was like, oh, let me just be spontaneous. And I had time to go and see him. Or at one point we only had one car. That was rough. And I would take him to work in the morning and then go do all my real estate stuff, and then come and pick him up back afterwards. And I was always running around. Now obviously my job was a little bit more flexible, so I could go and see him for lunch and pop in and say hi. But that made his day, that I was thinking about him and that I could just go and see him. So sometimes just kind of shifting your schedule a little bit just to be able to go see them for lunch if they're close enough is really a nice
nice little surprises here and there, whether it's that or surprise after work or whatever it may be.
Just making the other person feel special is really the whole part of putting each other first. Sometimes, it gets very hectic. Life is very busy. And so just trying to do little things that make each other feel special. Leaving a little note even can feel like you're putting the other first. Even if you have to plan ahead to write a note right before you're going to bed and put it in their bag or a pocket of theirs or something like that.
My lunch.
Yeah, and so it doesn't take me any time in my busy morning for me to do that, because I've already pre-planned that. So he'll go into his pocket or he'll go into his lunch or he'll do something and he'll see that, and woohoo, I got brownie points because I thought of something right before I went to bed and I truly was able to put my heart there. And that's the other thing, if you're into like writing little notes, if you're great at texts, cool, don't write a text, write a little note instead, fold those suckers up. Maybe you can write a bunch of them at one time that have different things that you're saying and save them up and then start putting those in little places for your spouse so they can find them. Okay, so another thing I just thought of is that putting each other first means putting each other's like hobbies or the things that they like to do first, even if they're not your favorite thing to do. So I don't know if I helped last time. I helped the other time. Okay. He likes to brew beer from time to time. He doesn't get around to doing it, but he's really into just creating things and making stuff. So when he's making something like amazing jam or beer, or he makes awesome ice cream, like I am not, like I cook all the time, like I'm constantly doing this cooking cleaning thing. I'm not really into it. So what I try to do is, how can I help you? And I'm like, oh,
how can I eat or drink what you're making?
No. Well, yeah, that too, but I always ask him, even though if you're flesh, if you don't really want it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what I'm gonna have to be doing for the next 2 hours is stirring this thing. Like that sucks.
Yeah,
but I'm able to say, I love him so much. I want to do something that he wants to do, and he'll enjoy it so much. He's so happy when I'm sitting there doing this stuff with him, and I have to keep a smile on my face. That's important too. You can't look miserable. But I want to enjoy that with him.
Putting the person first involves putting what they love first too.
Right, and we used to do paint and sips. He would plan these dates.
She would paint, I would sip.
And it worked because I love doing art, and so that's how we did the art together.
And also one thing you got a lot better at over the years was listening to the things that I had to say, even though they may not have been 100% interesting. Talking about something engineering related or something that's a little more technical, because I enjoy that type of stuff. Or historical or whatever it is. I enjoy that type of stuff, and so when I'm explaining something that's like, oh, this is so cool, and she used to sit there and be like, all right, this is boring. Where are you going with this?
And then that was rude. I used to be like, okay, babe, I really don't know where you're going with this. Can you
I'm
just
not
finish
interested,
the end of the story? Because I don't know. But then I listen to myself ramble. I'm like, whoa, okay.
But listening to the things that are interesting to your spouse and trying to find interest in those things as well. So those are just little things that you can do to make the other person feel special and pursue that person.
Oh, and what if it's your guy and he used to be really good at football or playing sports, and now he doesn't anymore because he's out of college, he's out of that realm. Maybe you can encourage him to start like a league, not little kids, but like a league. What was those that you did?
Oh, I did flag football.
You did softball or whatever at some point. And so encouraging them to play a sport, and you come and watch
and cheer them on.
And cheer them on. That makes them so happy. That was very nice.
Yeah.
So maybe that can be another tip. Like really just showing up for them when that night just becomes your guys' night, and you clear that night to go watch them play. It makes them feel really special.
So never stop pursuing each other.
That's it. Each other.
And always.
Yeah, we don't have it down 100%, obviously. We are just human and we are normal, but I do think that we've gotten a lot better at putting each other first. It was a struggle when we just had Tegan and everything really got chaotic again. You feel like you have it and then you have a baby again and then it all gets swirled around. So I feel like we have it again, and I'm really happy with where we're at and always thinking about each other. So
we'd love to hear any tips you have, or how you, especially if you have kids, like I said, we're in a good spot right now, but we could always be better. We'd love to have more time together and show our girls a better example. So if you have any advice for that, or maybe if you're in the pre-kids phase right now, anything we didn't talk about, put it below, let us know. We'd love to share it. Maybe we'll do something else on this in the future if the need is there, but we'd really love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you have other questions, we love when you guys ask us questions and we're able to talk on them. So ask away, and we will see you next time.
That's it. Have a great week.
All right, bye.
Peace.